Okay, and we are live. Actually, really, that's a really good way to start the stream. We should have done that much sooner in our kind of streaming career, I'd say. But yeah, we should have started off with doing that because it adds so much energy to the stream and to the, get everyone involved and get the blood pumping.
We live and learn, right, Alex?
Yeah,
We always love this one, right? And always thinks that we can improve. And I think this is just like, finally we got this teaser. Soon we're gonna change it again, and we start all over, right? It's just how life is. So yeah, no, good to be here.
I did chuckle when I see the final gameplay subject to change.
Yeah.
The big disclaimer. But anyway, enough on that one.
Yeah, it's a good segue from Morten there into kind of what this is about today. So first off, just start with the introduction. So I'm the community lead for Doctor Who. I'm Alex Thomas, and we'll do the Brady Bunch thing now. So to my left on the screen, but kind of to my right, is Tom over there. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, yeah. Hi all. I think I've met some of you in the Discord server. I know Ian. Thank you. I still owe you that beer, Ian. But yeah, I head up the marketing for Doctor Who and a few of the brands we work with as well. So good to be on the call.
He's here for moral support today. And then below, underneath me here, which, I won't say that in any other situation, but yeah, it's Morten. So do you want to introduce yourself there if you need to?
Yes, I can, but I think everybody here knows me. But of course, I'm the FatViking. Just actually returned from a big people's meeting in Denmark where I was also introduced on stage among politicians and everything as this is the FatViking in the metaverse. So it was actually really, really funny just to see the politicians because, again, anything around like Me Too and shaming and all that. And then a big guy on stage was called FatViking on purpose, and I just loved it. So that was so
cool. What was
cool.
the reaction on the crowd? What did the crowd do?
People were actually kind of a little bit like, okay, so this is kind of like his avatar name, kind of like said, yeah, but I'm Danish and I'm fat and I'm FatViking. So what else?
Well,
you can't hide it. I guess, like I said, ever since I started this whole Web3 journey or pivoting into the metaverse and what we're doing. Like I said, I was on stage at the Singapore FinTech Week, and the first thing I said when I was on stage sharing my story as a founder, I said, I've gained 40 kilos since starting this whole business. So fucking, that's really not the most positive way, but it just shows that the pressure and everything moving into this, that sometimes you forget yourself, you focus on so many other things. And like I said, I gained 40 kilos. I'm fully aware about it, but that's also just part of the kind of like the whole the whole history, right? So
during my first or second week is we were in the office in London, and there was the week where the mods came over, and again it was just like, yeah, this is FatViking, and trying to like say it like to your face in front of you was a bit like, yeah, he's a big dude. I don't really fancy my chances there by saying that. So I'm going to be quite careful with that,
Yeah, like I said, I can't run fast, but if I catch you, you're dead. So maybe that's.
I think we had a conversation about a famous boxer, which was called similar. Sort of conversation what you just said there. You can't run first, but if you catch you, and go, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But here we are. Here we are.
Yeah. So here we are today. I mean, it's quite overdue. We've been planning this for a little while. We've let's just say I took. Well, this actually was before Darren decided to show me a way of scraping the server in a more efficient way. I took the comments, which was about maybe 20 to 30,000 comments, and I manually went through them one by one, picking the questions and picking all the suggestions. And again, it took me a long time. And then Darren showed me that there was a much quicker way to do it. After I did it, which was great for Darren. But with this, I've pulled all the questions, put them together. I've showed them to some of the key members in the community and said to them, have we picked up on everything? And there are lots of them that were actually more, rather than being a question, it was more of a kind of suggestion. So that's kind of been put into kind of a separate category. And we have been placing those suggestions to to our dev team to basically implement in some way if they can, and give us the feedback on the logistics side of things. So should we just jump straight into the questions then?
Yeah, I think like again, if anybody wants to kind of like, if you don't feel like we have answered a question that has been asked in Discord that maybe wasn't a suggestion but more like a question, please just use the comments and ask it during the live show, and of course I will answer everything. Again, like I said, we're fully aware that we have made mistakes along the way. We've never kind of like hidden that, so we just want to improve, move forward. All is transparent. Again, just saying that if there's anything that you feel like you want an answer on, just like please ask it, and I'll make sure to answer it. And if it's something I can't answer directly on this one, I'll make sure to note it down. We will come back and make sure it's being answered in the Discord community, of course, so everybody can see it. So again, just keep asking if there's anything.
Okay, so this one actually came up quite a lot as a suggestion and a question as well. Is we'll start off easy, or not easy, but we'll get you in there. Which is when will we see AI to play against on the game?
Yes. So again, one of the big challenges with the existing gameplay that we've had, of course, is because of the complexity. It's still a mid-core, hardcore kind of like game, the desktop game that we have built so far. And we had a lot of challenges with AI integrated into, and the amount of work in order to at least produce something where some kind of AI would feel like it's a proper quality. Now that we're now switching to mobile, it's actually much easier for us to integrate an AI mode. And I could just say that we've been on the call today, and Tom can also back me up on this one, saying that we now know that the soft launch that we're going to get, or the tech launch, or whatever we're going to call it, but the soft launch we're going to have in August, I know, but we're going to come back to that one, is going to have AI integrated, and maybe even before, but it's not something that we can kind of commit to. But I know there's going to be a lot more conversations going. We're going to have a whole separate stream around the move to mobile, so I don't want to muddy it right now, but I'm just saying that we will have AI in it. We're fully aware, and we also are fully aware about the very small group of people who has played the game, that they haven't been able to find a competitor. Again, we've been kind of like a small community spread out all over the world, and we wanted to make sure that basically everybody can have a good experience playing against what seems to be basically a player, but could easily just be an AI, because we can actually use the AI model. And I know AI is on everybody's topic right now, and it was also actually on the event I just participated in. AI was all over the place and being discussed. So it is definitely something that we now have a possibility to integrate with a very high quality, I would say. So yes, absolutely.
Can I just?
And I don't know if Tom wants to expand a little bit on it.
Add to that, because from my six months with the business in the mod channel, in the Discord channels, etc., that has come up. That's been not what's the word? It hasn't stopped the game per se, but what it has done is it's been a little barrier to entry for new players. It's obviously a bit of a we've got the community who enjoy the game and play, and there's obviously the channel looking for a game, etc. But the AI, in terms of that kind of always on and that dopamine effect that we all look for in our activities outside of work. There's only a finite time. So yeah, I mean, having that AI feature is going to be fantastic. It's going to be really good.
It's huge, and I mean, especially if you want to do something along the lines of like testing decks as well. That's a massive thing. More than let a few things slip in that answer there, but we'll move on, and hopefully we'll come back to those.
I'm not known for that one, Alex. I'm not known for letting small things slip in.
Not normally this early on in the chat, though. Normally you leave it towards the end and then kind of disappear.
Yeah, true. But I need to be a little bit. I need to change my game, right? So I'll start doing it more often now in the beginning.
Okay, and then moving on to the next question is, when will we see the community see an up-to-date roadmap?
Yeah, so I think this has been the challenge ever since I started this, right? Because like everybody knows, an up-to-date roadmap. What is the definition of an up-to-date roadmap? I would say, because it changes all the time, and especially working with games. So I think it's more like we need to kind of like draw a line in the sand. From my point of view, is about we've now spent all this time, and we are finally with the team that we have, also in a place where I would say the change is more like now. We're fully aware that we need to have an up-to-date roadmap as good as it gets. But and I think actually, Tom, maybe you can expand a little bit more on this one because we are all sitting very closer now, where I think before we were a little bit kind of like separated, like this was the website team, this was the marketing, and this was the game team, and really didn't have a proper communication between these because we were scaling very fast. We also have other projects, even though it was a dedicated team only working on Doctor Who. We could see key members that had like an overlapping. We weren't communicating good enough, and especially because my attention was other places also. So I failed making sure that the communication was in place, basically between the different teams. Now I feel like, and maybe Tom, this is a good kind of like cue to you, but I feel like now we're in a much better place, and we have weekly meetings, actually sometimes multiple meetings during the week, where we kind of align and sprint planning and all these things to make sure that people are communicating, things are addressed, so we can go to a place or a stage where we can have a very as precise up-to-date roadmap as possible, planning ahead. But maybe Tom, you could add a little bit to it.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting one. I completely get the question, and I think I understand the reasoning behind it. But in my experience, the roadmap's only useful if it's updated and it's followed. And there is, speaking for myself, I don't want to spend an inordinate amount of my time or the team's time in updating something, whether it be visual or kind of verbal, that we don't have conviction in. But what I do have conviction in, and what we have committed to, and Morten's been leading the charge on this, is much tighter alignment between studio, production, the design house, BBC, marketing, in terms of getting that regular pulse of comms and that cadence that we're all committed to and we're all driving towards. And also looking at it retrospectively, what are the changes from the last dev update that we did? What were the milestones that we didn't hit, and what were the reasons behind it? And I think, and proof will be in the pudding, I think it'll alleviate some of the little frustrations that we see in the community if we just offer something that's a little bit more transparent and robust, and most importantly, is like easy for us to update and doesn't add more load on top of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, but especially kind of like the bigger systems now, we have changed a lot, right? And I think it's about like, we know that some of the functionalities that we had in place, sometimes priorities just change, right? Because some things we are kind of like we can control, some things we can't control. I think previously we have been, or I have been, I would say, nothing to do with you guys because it was before you guys joined, right? Kind of like sharing with the community ideas around this would be a super cool function that I really would like to look into, integrate into the game and to the platform. That suddenly didn't fly because of various things. I haven't been good enough to kind of like, okay, but then I need to go back to the community because I assumed that I made it clear that this was just an idea, just a suggestion, but that has been kind of like seen as, okay, this is Morten's choice in order to, this is what we're going to implement. So I've definitely also learned as a CEO that the room change and the conversation change when I enter a room, making sure that I don't set a direction and set kind of like a precedent saying that, okay, just because I have expressed maybe an idea, that doesn't mean that we're going to implement it. We definitely might want to kind of look into it, research it, and have the proper experts taking a decision, or at least come back to me saying that these are the options, Morten, that you can actually choose from this. And maybe none of them actually could fly. But one thing that we need to kind of like in in parallel work with the roadmap is of course making sure that the up to date the feedback goes back to the community. This couldn't fly because of this and this, and that's the communication part that we now finally, I think, so that we're getting, because we're working so tight now. Actually have a proper kind of like, I'm not saying that we're not going to make mistakes, but I'm saying that it's definitely improved, and it's something that you're going to see now is being rolled out. So, I have big hopes for the future, especially now the meetings that I sit in. I enjoy that I don't need to lead them and drive the meetings. It's simply just the teams themselves, the different departments that actually are talking. Also now integrating both Darren and Alex into the sprint planning, alongside also with marketing, making sure that they are sitting close to the website and the game team very early in the process, so they actually know what is going on, what is coming now, that we are looking into the different milestones and so on. So I think we will see a massive improvement moving forward. So communication has been my kind of like biggest focus for a long time, and I feel finally we're now getting into, and Ian just again highlights it, right? Solid communication is great news, and this is one of our key focus, and it has taken a long time, because like everybody knows, it involves a lot of people, and again, working in various departments, terminology, all these kind of things has just taken longer time, but it needs to take time in order to do it right. So I'm happy to see where we are going right now.
Sure.
Do you want to, Morten?
Sorry.
Sorry, Alex. Just really quickly. Just another similar vein is the QA process as well.
Yeah.
That again, I don't want to speak on your behalf. This is your expertise and domain, but it's just having a much, working with us to have and the community managers to have a much more a robust system for collecting, acknowledging, and responding in a timely manner.
Yes, both like collecting from of course from the community, collecting all this information when they're asking a question, which is super valid, right? We've had and this is no secret, right? We've had QA looking into and actually taking notice and copying all the questions. But a small thing as just like replying, I've seen your questions, I've forwarded it to the team, I'll come back. Small things like that actually were taking place, where I was saying that, why haven't we come back to these people? Simply because they were saying, but I wasn't sure that I was allowed to communicate that actually I've taken notice of you, because they were afraid to stepping on, Mott's kind of like toes and all these kind of things. So very small things can just quickly create a confusion. But now we finally are ironing out all these small things where we can get into a better shape, right? And QA, yes, not only just on Discord, is actually going through Discord every single day, saying that, is there something new? Where I think that we need to improve in Discord is that to have a dedicated channel, so they don't have to scrape through any small bits and all kind of channels just to see if there's any small kind of like, is there a question? We need to make it easier for them to gather all the questions that we might have in one channel. So they would just go in, this is now being collected for, let's just say Tuesday. Then he can go in, or they can go in and just collect all that, making sure communicate it back to the team, take a notice, write it inside the channel. I've seen. So they also know where to come back and reply to people who's actually asked the questions. And then, of course, every question is very different. And this is where I said a few weeks back, manage expectations. But at least if people has just been acknowledged that, I've seen your question, I'll come back. Please, just don't worry about me not coming back, because we will make sure that we are reviewing this every single day and how we can improve.
We have added a group since the data gathering was done. We have added that now. So
if it's more like community or people who's not been in Discord for a while, maybe go in, and if you have questions, one thing is that you're now asking them through the stream, but moving forward, definitely.
I know that there's a channel set up now on Discord for questions.
Yes,
and that was set up due to how long it took me to gather the questions. So just to add on to that as well, I mean, Tom has tasked me to kind of look around at how other servers and other kind of companies do their roadmaps as well, to look for an easily digestible kind of style. And, we're working on that as well. Also, one of the problems we did have in the past when I started was there was such a rush to pull a roadmap together that they put the dates on and they promised too much in such a short amount of time, and we don't want to do that again. We don't want to fall into that trap, because that was a big problem then as well.
And that was my basically, again, I would say lack back then, right? I wanted to kind of like commit to like, this is what we're gonna deliver in this quarter or by this date, because that was again communicated. Again, we didn't take into consideration kind of like, sometimes approval time could take longer from BBC, even because like technology or discovery phase or R&D phase with our own development team came back with issues saying that, oh, you haven't thought about this, and this. QA found issues. So suddenly it was just an avalanche of issues running down that whole, roadmap thing, right? So it's definitely something where we've learned from, and now also have a proper expert team, I would say, game team, who has coming from big companies. They know how to do this shit, right? So I've stepped back, and this is why I've also hired experts, right? So you're kind of like, I have still ideas, still have this, but they are the experts. So we will see a whole different way how to do it now, and it's just taking more time that people also maybe were hoping. But again, we need to make sure everybody is aligned in this one, because again, from dev updates to production to marketing and so on, it all needs to kind of like fall in place.
Sure. And then moving on to the next one is, are there any plans to move away from downloading a zip for the installer of the game?
Yes, so again, like I said, moving now into mobile will actually change that whole thing, because now we will be on the stores instead, and now we're touching a little bit on the mobile version, and I really don't want this stream to be about that, because we have a super cool stream lined up that we are now discussing, where we will have the dev team on it. We will have Adam, our studio director, explaining some of these kind of like the narrative and why we're doing like we're doing, and what is the reasoning why, and so on. But just to go on the installer, and we will be on the stores, right? I'm not saying it's going to come without some consequences in some ways, right? Because we are looking at, of course, as Google Play Store, we are looking at App Store. Everybody knows with App Store you also have an issue around NFTs, so it's something that we're going to highlight in the mobile, coming to mobile kind of like stream, and of course Epic Store, right? That's going to be our key focuses, being on these big ones. So absolutely, we want to get rid of that one. It's a big challenge. I've even spoken to Joshua, our technical director, today, just to make sure that I got the latest news. What are we going to do, and all these kind of things, because I know it's been a challenge, right? But yeah, I hope that explains. If anybody else has something around the installer, if that question or answer didn't kind of like cover it, please let me know. But of course, we are focusing a lot on these stores, and of course the Epic Store, and then looking into what other kind of like publishers, how can we get publisher help, and all these kind of things, Steam and so on, right? So
I think
the
Steam
more
has
we can,
issues with,
yeah,
NFTs.
but we need to prioritize, right? It's about taking the right decision and look into where's the audience, because there's one thing that we want to do for you guys who's been here from the beginning supporting us, and yes, we will lose people along the way. That's just natural. But what I want to make sure that you understand, that we are doing everything we can, and we want to make sure that we are producing a AAA quality game that is fun to play. Again, the highest quality that you could expect, again, from a BBC or a Doctor Who company or IP. And then, of course, there's going to be a big audience that wants to buy the cards. It's all about the NFTs in that sense. It's still a balance. We are still in what I call a Web 2 world now, migrating into Web 3. That doesn't come without any kind of sacrifices in some way. But my focus is NFTs. This is the future. It's about ownership. It's about you can take your assets and move them around and so on. So yes, it is it's a process, I would say. So Epic Store, we're really happy about that.
Okay.
But I'm just going to say
as well. Sorry,
yeah,
just
with the
to
utility, with the
Yeah.
utility, of course, as well. And I just want to highlight on the mobile version, we're going to be cross-platform. So it's not only going to be mobile, we're going to be cross-platform. I didn't kind of like highlight that, kind of like big enough. So we're going to be desktop, we're going to be mobile. You can play against Yeah, there it is. Basically, on both, right? So, I could be on mobile and I could challenge somebody on desktop and vice versa, right? So, or desktop, mobile. Like, again, the systems now, and this is what I learned from also having really fucking awesome team, is about how the technology has also evolved since when I started. And remember, I'm as old as Commodore 64 and Amiga, right? So, plenty of room to kind of like learn. And what I've seen is just like, technology has improved so much, so actually cross-platform is much easier than kind of like is expected. There are still some boundaries and things we need to look at from a technical point of view, but much more on the next stream, I would say.
Sure. Yeah, we need to save some content for the mobile stream.
Believe me, that's going to be plenty of content for that one.
I'm just going to skip forward to a couple of questions because it flows better anyway. So,
yeah.
Can we have a clear plan on what will happen in the event of a card or of FT holder's death? That came up. There was a whole big debate about it with several members, and they all got into legal and GDPR and all that kind of business.
And again, this was a very, very valid, and actually I'm very happy to see this kind of like suggestion from the community, right? But it's also just to highlight one of the most complicated kind of like questions, or at least a very complicated question to kind of answer, because again, GDPR, all these kind of things, right? Because again, we want, and again, in a Web3 world, if this was fully decentralized, I wouldn't know your kind of like your identity and all that. But also, how can I prove that actually you are dead? First of all, like death certificate, all that. How can I make sure that you actually have access to the private keys and all these things? So this is where I would say a Web 2.5 kind of sets up where we are right now in order to remove the friction, get the mass market in, and so on, is helping us. But what we are looking at right now, we are still discussing with legal, because we're not only just a kind of like a UK company, we still have a worldwide audience. What it goes across all this, how can we make sure to have a process? And this is what our legal team and HR right now are looking into. And they have come back saying that there are some key things that we can look at. One of the key things that's going to be, well, say mandatory, is that you have to have done your KYC on your account. Otherwise, we have no opportunity actually to understand or know that you are the person that somebody is coming and claiming that you're dead and want to have your account and your assets. The next thing is that we need to see how can we, not all countries would have a death certificate. Somebody will have like a deceased certificate and so on, and it really varies, and we need to set up basically a procedure how we handle this whole thing. It is already set in motion. It is something that we have a big focus on, because I think it's a very key thing us as a company, not only just with Doctor Who, but if we can help other companies also having kind of like a process for this one, because again, I know that you guys are not only just in Doctor Who, but a lot of our community members are in other projects also. So this is, again, like I said, almost like an open source kind of thing that we can share with other companies. This is how we have done it. And again, we are a leading company and a Web3 company in this world. So I think we need to take kind of like a leadership and share with others, how have we done it and how can you also do it? And then we just need to improve the system in that sense. So we are fully aware about it.
It's a really interesting one with some of the other projects we work on, where it's like proof of contribution, gig economy, reoccurring revenue streams and things like that. Yeah, it's big topic.
Yeah, because again, at the end, right, we want to protect your data privacy. At the other hand, we also are fully aware about what happens if somebody is dead, right? And how can we make sure that your assets can be kind of like transferred over to a new account? So what we are looking at, from the top of my head, again, we have not narrowed down the exact procedure, but ideally what I'm looking at right now is to set up new accounts, almost like a soulbone token approach, where until it kind of like the KYC get verified, it's still kind of like data privacy in that sense. We don't need to know the information. I don't need to know if it's Ian or Alex or whoever it is behind it. I just need to basically be able to query saying that, do we know the ID of this person? So in case that we need to reveal it or get the information, we can do it. We can get it, but on a daily basis, nobody should actually be able to access it and so on. But there is, like, everybody I think can kind of like hear on this answer, there's a lot of kind of like moving parts in this one that we are looking into, and how do we solve this, right? And again, I haven't seen any kind of like company out there have solved it already. If somebody is stumbling upon it, please forward it to the team so I can kind of like get my legal and HR into it. But nobody has solved it so far. But I'm very, very happy and actually proud that the community has pushed this forward, and also happy to see that we are now starting to kind of like work on it. I have worked on it for a long time, to saying, but it's a really, really strong, kind of like a long process, to be honest.
It's a tough one as well, because whenever you have anything like where you mean the best and you want to do the best, there's always some way that someone somewhere will kind of try and take advantage of that situation. I'm not saying that's something that someone would do in this community, but in some kind of community, they may find a way to, I don't know, collect their cards when you can't do that. Do you know what I mean? So there's
Yeah.
always a way. So you always have to take all these things into consideration. And it's very tough. And
No,
then
we
also
need to
when
see
you
it
have,
from a scammer point of view, right? How would somebody
yeah,
actually scan the system,
benefit,
try
yeah.
to exploit it, and all these kind of things, right? Even though I have to say that we have an amazing community in that sense, that we have a very low kind of like I would say toxic community. Everybody's looking after each other and so on. But we just know that once we scale and once we grow, really kind of like
Yeah.
the hyper growth that we're going to see, these kind of things also follow, right?
100%. 100%. I mean, yeah,
I get to
hopefully we
see.
can.
I get to see one of our mods is actually saying, "My wife gets my login details and passwords when I die." You know,
Because
I
the other
hope it's
side of
before
things,
you die and actually not
yeah,
when you die. You know, like so. It's
because the other side of things as well is, I mean, even like say for example in the UK, there's taxation laws for inheritance, so it gets very complicated, very very
yeah,
complicated. So yeah, I don't,
yeah,
I'm glad I'm not the person having to work that out. Sorry, if we then move on from
yes.
that one, so I'm going to go back to the one I skipped, which is when will the Unearthly Origins cards come to PTR, or are they planned to come to PTR?
They are planned coming to our, but more in a thematic kind of bundles, because like everybody kind of like when we started this whole thing, we issued 212 Unearthly Origin cards, super complex, with the card abilities, and this was what I will call us amateurs kind of like inventing something where we think this was a really cool between Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering, and kind of like some of the card abilities from a dev point of view. uh kind of like our really experienced developers were just like, what the fuck have you guys been doing? Because it's so complicated and would affect other things. So we had to kind of like reinvent it, reduce the kind of like I would say the a lot of the complexity in it. And now they're coming into more like thematic bundles, meaning that we're going to work on maybe, let's say, Silurians, just to take an examples. It's kind of like Silurians, which maybe will be 2025 kind of like cards, implement them into kind of like the PTR to start with, so we get them in, and maybe even have 2 or 3 kind of like thematic bundles. That also means that when we're going to reissue them as kind of like playable, we can also do a lot more kind of marketing. I think this is where also Tom is very happy, because we can like do like website takeovers and all these kind of things, and really build a narrative and a storytelling up towards the cards and that bundle. Why are we implementing? What's the story behind it? What's the narrative? And really get people super engaged. I think so with the lore, where we've been focusing a lot on kind of like it's just a pack, very kind of like different, very mixed, where I think we will have a much stronger kind of like a narrative and storytelling, doing it with thematic bundles. So yes, they will come. They've already kind of like started now, of course, with all the artwork that needs to go through approval, because we are upgrading everything. And then the game designers are now looking into how the card ability can be simplified but still working. And again, how will all this now work into both a desktop and a mobile version?
Yeah, because I
I
mean
think
that's
also, sorry,
cool.
just really quickly on that, like the key one for that was the thematic. And it's something that, from a marketing perspective, being able to kind of get your teeth around in a dedicated focus where you're doubling down on a particular element of the lore and characters, etc. But also it's using the thematic to segue into more of the gameplay in terms of what the characteristics and the archetypes of the cards are. And it's all, as much as it's kind of it's fun, it also makes it digestible and it's educational from the collection through to the actual gameplay. So as soon as we got that, and we've got some mega brains and absolute authorities on the lore, and yeah, we need to be doubling down on it. Really,
and also in the community, right? I know that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's amazing, and this is where some of the things, going back to how we're going to work, and also making sure everything from roadmap, events, and all these kind of things, right? All part of that is how we can integrate the community much more. It's not a secret that we had a lot of replacement in marketing back and forth. That happens, and every time a new person comes on board, things just kind of like, it's just kind of, you need to kind of like go back to bases and then get them into the loop and all that, right? So, we need to, and this has been one of the issues, right? I know that both of you actually came along because Jake stopped when Agnes came along, the handover, and then of course Rob stopped for marketing, and then Tom came along, and in between all this moving and shifting and all that, and has just been, but finally we're now seeing that we are in a much better place. And I think like now with this one, with thematic bundles, integrating the community much more and all that, it's finally where I wanted to be like a year ago, right? But yeah, that's...
Also, adding the cards into the public test realm, I think, was great as well, because then it gives the founders token holders the chance to play the cards early, but also it helps with the balancing, because there are a few cards, especially when the TLV cards came into play, where it was highly noticed that these cards are balanced in really the wrong way. That feedback comes back to the team, and then when they're put into the main game, they're in a better place. And I think that is a really good level to have in there. And also, whenever you have no matter how much studio testing you do, you just you can do as much studio testing as well. You do weeks upon weeks upon weeks, but the studio are never going to do some of the things that the community do. It's just something.
No, never. No, absolutely. And I think this is also just to keep in mind with the PTR, right? Because I have seen some comments about, this is so unbalanced, or kind of like it's kind of like, doesn't make sense, right? That's what PTR is there for, right? It's about giving us that information back. So, again, I think everybody should still be kind of like, or at least understand that PTR is there for us to, you guys get kind of like, and this is one of the perks of having a founders token, of course, getting the newest cards in, get to know them, get an advantage, build up your deck, give us feedback alongside that one. And yes, we will, and I know this is not a question that is here, but I know it's been asked a few times. Yes, we will integrate a reward system around playing, giving feedback, all these kind of things. It has been a big topic. Again, like I'm just saying, it's just been a big, it's a big function for us to understand the tokenomics behind it and the implications and so on, right? So, yeah.
Well, yeah, being involved in a lot of the meetings, I mean, it's mind blowing the amount of things that we talk about behind the scenes that unfortunately we're not allowed to share. And it's, as a community lead, it's really frustrating when I see some of the questions, and I'm like, I can't tell you, but
yeah.
this
is where I think going back to where we can not the roadmap, a little bit maybe with the roadmap, like once we have agreed on, we are looking into these things, right? Maybe we can't disclose all the details around it, but this is of course where we are working, kind of like where I have said with marketing, what can we disclose, what can we tell, what can't we tell? But at least then the community is fully aware. We are now looking into some research around this one. We don't know what the kind of like outcome will be, but this is also a chance for community to give some kind of like pointers or ideas. We're not saying that, again, that we're going to implement all these, but that, we have got a lot of good ideas from the community. So it's about finding that balance where at the end, it's still going to be studio calls, kind of like if they are saying, this is what we're going to do because of this, and this, then, we need to make sure, how do we feed that back to community and making sure that they feel like, okay, you still research, you still looked into, could be a possibility, but you've taken another route. That doesn't mean that we haven't appreciated, I would say, the kind of like the feedback, or at least the suggestions, right? So yeah.
Okay, I'm going to jump around a little bit again just to make
Yeah,
it
yeah.
flow better. So will the bids and P2P come to marketplace?
Yeah. Oh, this is, I'm glad actually James is not on the call. I think James is happy that he's not on the call. So James is our CWS manager for the marketing, or for the website team. And P2B, we have been having on our radar, I think, so I can't even remember, I think more than a year. And it seems like always being pushed down the priority list in that sense. It is, and I keep saying it, almost ready. I've seen it, I've tested it. There are still some things in the user journey that I'm not happy about. That doesn't make sense. That it's gone back to again the design team, staging team is then implementing, doing the changes, and going back. But P2P, I will guarantee you, will come before we move into mobile. I would guarantee you that much. But it has just been pushed down priority because of so many other things that needed to be prioritized, like with the tokenized packs and so on. And again, I only have X amount of developers who can do X amount of work per week, and sometimes it's just this, to be honest, a shitty priority that you need to do, and moving it. But the good thing is that I think our community has lost confidence in it. Me saying it so many times that they actually just like, yeah, okay, it's gonna come at some day. So, but I'm just gonna say, I'm fully aware about it. It's my responsibility. We've communicated a few deadlines. One of them I also knew was the pushback from B2B from BBC, but we are picking it up, and it is, I know, working in staging as it is right now.
Okay, and then I'll move to the next one here, which is, will mining and planets come to the game?
Yes, so I know, again, going back to what I kind of like highlighted in the beginning, this was a big thing for me way back actually when Andy's was also here, that we wanted to see how we could expand this whole universe with planets, plots for sales, and so on, and rewards and resources. And planets we have integrated in terms of a card. We still want to look into how can we add the planets from a plot, how can we do resources, all these things that are happening kind of like outside the game, but still kind of like integrated. We are still discussing with BBC in terms of within the IP or the contract, are we allowed to do these kind of things? Who else has access to it? What is our narrative? And we need to build up a whole concept deck around that. So it's something that we are still exploring, not something that is even, I would say, close to being finalized. I know that Adam has a lot of ideas around how can we do resources, how can you earn everything from resources to special mana and all these kind of things that you can use only for special frames. So we are looking kind of like a hybrid, and still my big wish is how can we integrate a metaverse into the Doctor Who, right? I think it will come maybe being speed up depending on how now BBC and Doctor Who is moving into Disney Plus, how this will be seen from an audience, if the audience is really expanding. I think maybe that discussion is something that BBC would be willing to pick up maybe quicker, depending on, again, how's the audience reacting to the whole Doctor Who.
Sure. So this is a big one that's come up a lot, and actually I can combine these two really. So when will frames be included in the game? And I'll add that into that as well about the serial numbers as well. So frames and serial numbers.
Yes, so we are already looking into and have already, I've seen integrated frames into the mobile version, where I can already now say that we are looking and would have the biggest issue is Apple. Apple as an NFT in that sense, and it's not easy because ideally with the Apple guidelines, if we are showing frames inside the mobile version or inside the version, then we're actually breaking Apple's guidelines, because that is being seen as an NFT, because the frame and the cardability needs to be separated in that sense. They are separated from an NFT point of view, but if that's why we've actually, and I know we're going to come on to that one in the stream, but we're going to integrate basically kill switches into the iOS version, meaning that we can switch off if we are breaking Apple's guidelines, and they come back with that kind of feedback. We can switch on basically that you can't show the frames inside the game. You can still trade them, you can do all these things, but with Apple products, we need to have that opportunity to do these kill switches. From my perspective, I'm willing to say fuck Apple and just saying that we're not gonna even issue on Apple. I know this is gonna, maybe not resonate very well with the with the community, but that's why I really like Epic, because they have taken a very clear stance how they see NFTs. But I'm also fully aware about if you're looking at the economic on, how much actually Apple stands for in terms of revenue and all that. But a personal entrepreneur, and I've said this very clearly to Adam, saying that I'm actually willing to fuck Apple and just say that I don't, let's just can them in that sense. But I believe that Apple is doing a transformation. And yes, there are workarounds. User journey? No, absolutely not. Kind of like the optimal way where you can kind of like convert something, have a stable coin, have their own currency. What Apple, of course, is looking into, and I know this is live and not bashing at Apple in that sense, but it is really a bashing. But they're, of course, protecting their own revenue, right? They're protecting their marketplace and all that. I believe, actually they can have a bigger economy by opening it up to NFTs, getting a smaller cut of it, making sure actually to take a leading stand that I think Apple is one of the best companies in the world to do from a design perspective, technology-wise and all that. So I actually think they could benefit from it. But if we are going to be at that decision where Apple is coming back saying that you need to kill basically or not show the frames inside the mobile version, that's a decision that I will also ask the community. My own opinion would be fuck Apple. I know this is very kind of like, sorry to shock you guys, but
Well,
but this
No,
is,
but it's Morten,
I think I'm on the community side, right? I'm on the NFT
Yeah, of
side.
course.
It's about,
Yeah.
this is a fundamental thing. When I started this, when I discovered blockchain and went into Ethereum, where really the 2 cents for me kind of like, boom, it was all about the ownership. Like, I've played games for years now where I've spent thousands of dollars and actually not owning the asset when it comes down to kind of like a business, right? So me spending all this money and basically they could take everything away from me, right? So for me, that was a game changer and saying that this is why I would fight the big companies. I am a small company, fully aware about that. I mean nothing to these guys, but I think it's about showing that the time is changing. The community is key in Web3. It's just a matter of time before Apple needs to surrender to the new Web3 and the community, how we think and how ownership is perceived. Otherwise, they are obsolete. I will guarantee you that, because the digital economy is moving, the audience is already moving, so we need to kind of like push everything we can. That's why we have integrated the kill switches, so we will still have it from a technical point of view, so we can do it. But ideally, absolutely not. We want to make sure that you can see the frames and the NFTs. Of course, we can then discuss kind of like performance issues, like you need to download all the frames that you have. That means that it's going to take up a lot of kind of like space on your mobile phone and all these kind of things. Serial numbers is another thing that I know we discussed. Again, going back to Apple's guidelines, we are breaking Apple's guidelines if we're showing it because it's an NFT in that sense. So it's something that we are looking around. We are kind of like seeing how can we now have some technical launches, some technical versions that we can submit to Apple, have what I hope an adult discussion around that. We're not breaking anything. We're paying our taxes. We're doing everything. So why actually not allow people to demonstrate and show their own property and their own ownership, right? So yeah, that was a long discussion, but I really feel very, very strongly for this one.
Clearly, no. I mean, and don't blame you as well, because again, that's something that, with this game, especially where some members have spent a lot of money on their frames to be available in the game, and to not be available, it kind of doesn't make the game pointless, but it takes away quite a lot from the journey of the game and that whole experience. Because
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, no, no, yeah,
I mean, I don't know, the highest traded card I think was $2,500, I believe,
yeah,
and imagine that person playing that card, and I'm just playing, you know, uh, um, a gold framed version of the card, which cost me $2 or whatever. Um, that that's their bragging right as well. Do they pay that
true.
much money for it? And it's that kind of like, here's my serial one of this card, bang, and you're like, wow, that's an amazing card, and that's a whole big element of the game. I'm not saying the whole thing is about bragging, but it's a big factor. Is when you've got these great cards, you want to show them off in the frames.
Of course. Yeah, no, 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 absolutely. So it is really a balance, right? And I think now, of course, moving into mobile, you also have, how do you solve that from a frame perspective? We already knew in kind of like the version that we have now that, you could actually, based on the frame itself, if you were seeing the backside of it, you could actually almost like determine, oh, it might be this card and this card and this card, right? Especially if you're dragging it from the past and all these kind of things. So there were possibilities where you can actually predict kind of like what is the next move that the player is going to do. So I get it from a game logic perspective, right? But looking at where we are in a Web3, of course, these are some of the discussions that we are having with Studio. How can we solve this? How can we do the best outcome? And at the end, it's about finding the compromises, making sure that it's the best kind of experience from the players, people who come in just to play, but also rewarding people, of course, and make sure that they can brag about it, saying that I got this white point star, I got the early kind of legacy frames, and so on. At the same time, we also want to make sure that we reward people who actually are just playing, right, and really don't care about the kind of like these really cool and valuable cards, but maybe how can we then take them and create even more kind of like value for them, maybe not part of the game, but outside, and still have the link inside to the game saying that if you want this really cool set, you can now unlock rewards or achievements and so on and play special modes if you have these cards and so on. And this is where the P2P marketplace and everything needs to come together in a much bigger kind of like, I would say, more logic that we have seen so far, that it's just been a website and a game. And I know that Tom was one of the key things kind of like highlighting this when he joined the company, saying that, but how is this actually linked together, and how do we make sure that the storytelling and the narratives are kind of like making sense from both the speculator, the fan, and the casual gamer? And I think this is one of the most important things that we never have thought about, and only thought about, oh, but it needs to look good, and we need to make sure that kind of like the website is there, and how do we link, but how will everything be linked in the future, right?
But there was something yesterday that, I mean, I won't say the topic that came up, but there was something which, when I saw your reaction, it was really good to see, where you were very passionate about how you don't want something to be like an elitism. You don't want it. You want everyone to be kind of equal in the game, and you don't want them to be, because there's a restriction placed on them that they don't have a founders token or they don't have certain cards, that there's a restriction. And I really like to see how emotional you were, and how like your response to that yesterday actually was very good, very good.
Yeah,
Just want to
yeah.
so the next topics now. So we've got the last questions, which are more about the sort of FT rewards side of things. So is there a plan in place to deal with the number of unsold founders tokens?
Yes, we have kind of like looked back into that one. Yes, we know this, the value of the whole, I'll say the whole crypto side has basically just gone down, right? And it hasn't been kind of like clear what we're doing. I also think a lot of people, which I didn't see it like that, has speculated is just buying the founders token, kept the cards, and basically just sold the token or listed the token, and still be eligible for drops and stuff like that. That is one of the things that actually I am changing, and I've said this, that I don't want to see people just listing a founders token for sale and still be eligible for airdrops. I'm gonna
Yeah.
change that. I have said that because I'm tired of seeing that people just coming in, just doing it from a speculative point of view. I'm fully aware we're gonna have a community with speculators, casual gamers, and fans and all that. But I think we have seen a behavior that I don't want to do. And why would I reward and do airdrops to founders token holders who basically have just listed their founders token and still are being seen as the exact same founders token who basically kept it or have kept it and don't list it and see it, even though it's an investment tool or if you've bought multiple. I don't want to see that. So that's one of the things that I'm going to change. Also looking at the perks, making sure that we are revisiting those, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, because ideally we have been super generous in general, and I know that Founders Token is gonna maybe disagree a little bit on that lately. We still have the biggest airdrop ever seen, which is being planned right now. And I would just say right now I'm actually doing, because I know this was in one of the old streams we did, I think 3 or 4 times ago, Alex, where I basically said, I'm going to do an airdrop, and it was kind of like confused. It was for everybody. It was only for the founders token. So I'm actually doing an airdrop right now for everybody. So that's kind of like done, dusted. I don't want to hear that anymore. It was a mistake I said and was misunderstood, and I keep hearing for it. And it's not a comment to you, Ian, but it is. But now it's done, and and I never need to hear it anymore because it was a mistake I did. I misunderstood, and now I'm just correcting that error. So the airdrop is being done for everybody in the community right now. They're gonna get a free pack. I'm just gonna say that alone is a minimum of $100,000 airdrop that I'm doing right now. So it's not just like doing airdrop. It's not cheap in that sense, right? We have done a lot of I would say airdrops, especially values, when we calculated the price for the old founders token on $1,000. I know the value was more than, I think, $1,500. Ever since, I wanted to do more than just like pack airdrops. I think we also kind of like we are still planning the burning of the packs, and that's gonna be together with the big airdrop that we're gonna do. So more to come on that one. I know that me and Tom are actually planning that together with the community guys right now. How can we do this? What is it? How do we communicate it? Because you can only get your fingers on it if you have not listed your founders token for sale and you actually have a founders token. And believe me, this is an airdrop you don't want to miss. Of course, we're then looking into other possibilities for the founders token, staking, other kind of like how can we activate them? How can we make sure? One thing that I still want to highlight here is that I want to bring as much value as possible for the founders token. They have taken a big one. They're supporting us. They're getting access. Yes, some things we can improve. We need to be more clear about how can you get like an impact on the game, voting, all these kind of things that we're going to revisit. But I also need to make sure that the general community don't feel like I've created a gap between founders token and the rest of the community. Yes, absolutely. It's not what I would call an elite in that sense. So that's why I need to revisit maybe price. Maybe I need to do, that's why we maybe are looking into what can we do with the remaining ones. Because I also feel like I'm creating a little bit what I've been against, kind of like an elite small group of people who can afford a founders token. And yes, I need to see how I can balance that whole thing again. And maybe $1,000 was too much. It wasn't back then when we looked at the general value, and also I haven't kind of like looked at where the kind of like the general cryptocurrency market were at that time, NFT hype and all that. Something we need to revisit. Fully aware that some people bought it for 1,000. I need to look at all this, and this is what we are planning right now. Seeing that how many people has been affected, how can we compensate, or basically how could we just do more, and how are we correcting it in the future, and what's the plan ahead. And just so everybody's aware, I think we've airdropped, or not airdropped, we've set like 800 for sale, so we still have 1,000. This is not something that is going to be released over the next 2 or 3 years. This is going to be the next 10 years ahead, right? So we're not going to see these maybe massive batches like we did back then, and we need to reduce it and revisit it again. So yeah.
Okay.
And again, I'm just saying that the big airdrop that we're going to do is not going to be per founders token holder, but per founders token. And I also know that has also been a comment in between, but I very clearly said from the beginning, I'm going to do a mix. And I know people is never happy if they have speculated and bought more. I'm just saying that that's a speculative behavior. And sometimes the FatViking is just going to punish that. But I've been very clear on that from the beginning. Sometimes I'm going to do per founders token holder, and sometimes it's going to be per founders token. But the big airdrop that we're going to do is going to be per founders token that you own.
All right.
So be speculative if that's what you want.
Okay, and then the next one up is, will founders token holders have the Q&A sessions with the developers as promised?
Yes, of course. Like I said, and I think I wrote that in the channel. I can't force my devs to be kind of like be on here, right? But what I can promise that I've worked with marketing and of course with you guys, that we are looking into how can we have these quarterly kind of like walkthroughs where we have our studio director Adam, of course, here. We maybe will have some devs. They need to sign up for it. And also, of course, UX or sound engineers or whoever is relevant, if it makes sense. And yes, we will plan it. It's going to be roughly what we are hoping quarterly, mixed in between when does it make sense that they actually come on board to have something to show, maybe a new direction and so on. And of course, we're still going to nurture the founders token and the rest of the community, right? So and no worries, Ian. I know that you're always doing it for the right purpose. So it's all about the community. So like I said, appreciate it, and I've just corrected my error. So all is all good.
And yeah, don't worry, Dr. Hardstyle. I'll get that. Sorry, I just clicked on Ian again. I'll get that sorted soon. Next one up is the will there be more opportunity for founders token holders to have votes on the future of the game?
Yeah, like I said, we will definitely implement kind of like where we would like founders token or kind of like general community to give input to maybe some kind of things. What do you think about this? Vote about this and this, right? It's purely, I wouldn't say direction where you could choose what exactly are we going to do with this one. At the end, it's still going to be Adam, my studio director, his final decision. But we are fully aware we want to include the community much more, the inputs, gathering information, good suggestions, all that. I know we have used it too little lately. I think the last, I would say 1.5 month maybe, we kind of like tried to correct all the errors that we've done in a long pause, because again, I haven't been so much involved in the community. I'm taking a more active role back in. Because simply I can just see community is the key in Web3 and also the heart and soul of our company. And I want to make sure that, we fix all this, and what we've fixed now with the team behind the scenes, how they're working, the different departments, we now need to make sure how could we get community aligned also and integrated back into to us, right? So that's where we are. I hope that answered a lot of it. I'm not sure if we have questions in the...
No, it's cool. So the last, just to finish off on the founders tokens. So secret new features and revenue streams. So this, and what will these be? Big question, actually, and it ties into some of the questions that the community have been asking on the stream as well. So
yeah, so we are looking at various things. Like I said, how can we make sure that people who play, people who active, kind of like participate, all that. We are looking into the whole Pandax system. How can we integrate it from a testing point of view, rewarding all that. One thing that I don't think I've disclosed yet, I know some of the mods knows it, but and Fruendo and Lego and of course has been very much involved also, is we've been looking into now kind of like moving with BBC into Disney Plus and kind of like being streamed. We also are expecting our community to grow very rapidly. So one of the things that we've been looking at to how can we also use AI? How can we flag? How can we make sure that we don't have the kind of like toxicity? How can we make sure we don't have to onboard 15 new mods and so on, right? So one of the things that I've been working on with together with Henrik from the University of Copenhagen is a study and actually a review paper how we could use AI to flag toxic behavior or fraudulent behavior and also good behavior. Actually, what is our key values in the community? What do we want to, as a company, stand for? So how can we also use that, what I call a proof of contribution model, in order to reward good behavior, people who actually report spammers, helping each other, all these kind of things. So we preserve basically all the good of a community, and we together also take an active kind of like step towards the toxicity and all that. And that proof of contribution model is something that right now different professors actually looked at it. The event I was at, we actually revealed it also, and I would just have to say, and I'll have to flag it here, we actually announced it a week before. We've been working on this since December, right? And last week Sequoia came out, and everybody knows Sequoia here, came out saying that AI, this is how you can use AI to manage hypergrowth in decentralized community. And we have been doing it since December. And I'm just saying, I'm fucking proud of it. Just to show that we have actually taking a decision how we could use AI in a positive way, and also how can we use Pandax, and now tying that contribution model into a reward and intent model and all these kind of things. So it's a big thing that we are now trying to implement. So we will make sure to reward people also just playing games, helping us, right? Because one thing is that you're trading, and in that sense generating revenue because commission and all these kind of things and buying packs, but also just by playing games you're also helping us, you're improving us, you're helping us as a company. If you're helping us towards kind of like toxicity and all that, of course we also want to reward you, right? So that whole proof of contribution model is something that we worked on, that we're going to implement, and of course also can be punished if you're trying to gamify it in the wrong matter. So hopefully, but I know our community is wise, that we will quickly find out if they are using it for the wrong intentions. But so yes, that whole reward and how we can make sure to give even more back to the community is something that we also have been working on. Yes, maybe a little bit silent behind the scenes. We've submitted the paper now for peer review. It's now being checked. We should be told by end of July, and then it will go into a scientific journal, because the University of Copenhagen, which is one of the top 5 in the world, together with Ahmed University down in Melbourne, who is the leading company in culture. The professors down there said this is groundbreaking, how we have actually seen the fat thinkers kind of like value what I want to see, how I want to see a community is working. Yes, with all the flaws, all the mistakes we've done so far, but that's what we are now learning, and how we can improve and teach and train the model moving forward. And I'm just saying, it's very interesting to see how your own brain has been cloned by an AI. Actually, pretty scary, seeing how fucked up I am. So, so maybe we will see this whole AI will just go ballistic and nuke the whole thing. So yeah, we'll see.
What we'll do here is we're just going to go. We got some questions while we've been on air, so we'll just run through these ones quickly and then
Yeah.
see if we got some answers. With the first one, we are going to do a specific stream dedicated to mobile. So we've gone
Yeah.
through a few points on mobile, probably a few more than we were actually meant to today. So you've probably got more than your fair share of that so far. So we're not going to touch any more onto that one.
No.
A nice feature that came up in one of our streams is that it would be nice to send those messages like "good game" at the end as well as during the game. Oh, because when you finish the game, it kind of cuts off. Yeah. So
Emotes is already yeah. So
yeah.
I think this came up at the last stream. I think we did with the traveling TARDIS also, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, so I think that was a comment about when signed this, basically the user was already left. So
Yeah.
it's about when you're sending this. So I think this is just a dev thing that I know it was submitted, but yes, we are fully aware about that one.
This one's more of a dev thing. So it's about, I've asked a question via the website. However, I'm still waiting the answer. How long should it be to be given one ticket once it's been raised?
Yeah, it really depends on the kind of like the question you've asked, right? I know right now all support tickets goes to our Q&A. You should get an auto reply that your ticket has been received, and then they should come back to you within reasonable time. I think it really still really depends what the subject is, but I would still aim for, support is something where we really need to kind of like level up much more. And I know we've been talking about a live up support and all that. That's part of what we are launching, right? But we need to improve that one. But I would say a good week maximum, then I would raise the ticket again or raise it into the Discord, join the Discord, making sure to write it in there so the QA can pick it up and come back to saying, yes, we are fully investigating and so on. Just at least so you get an update on it. But it is something we need to improve. When it's technical, sometimes it takes longer, but it's something where I think we can massively improve and should improve, because it's not good enough. No, 100%.
Sure.
I hands down,
Don, I did see your question, but it's already been answered about the serial numbers. It's similar to the frames with the issues with iOS, and I don't want to start more off on another rant. So
no.
if the frames are not in the game, how will the game generate an income for reality?
Oh, but the frames will be in the game, Ian. The frames will be in the game. What I'm saying is that iOS is a potential issue. So it's basically down to if iOS is saying that because of the policies, because of NFTs, they are saying you need to separate kind of like the NFT part from the card ability. So I can show the card with the card ability. I can't show the frame because it's an NFT. And that's the issue, right? So I can put in and integrate kill switches, basically make it like, okay, then I only show the card. This is only for iOS. Doesn't mean that Android and desktop and all the other ones, I can't do it. But for iOS, I would have this issue. And the problem is, me as a person, and now I'll go on rant, right? I'll just say it. Apple is the issue. And, at the end, should I live with, can the company live with, can you as a user live with, okay, when it's talking about iOS devices, I won't be able to brag around my frames. Can we do other parts? Absolutely. But in game, I'm breaking Apple's guidelines if I'm not separating these two. But again, we're submitting right now a version. We will go into discussion with Apple. Like I said, when we started this whole thing, we were the first company and the first game to integrate NFTs into App Store. So we have a relation with them. It's going to be discussion. I'm not going to say, we don't like the outcome or they won't like the outcome, whatever it's going to be. But I will guarantee you I'll come back with a clear answer on that one.
And that was the toned down version. If you want to see the more graphic version, rewind about 27 minutes prior to this.
Yes. Yeah.
So will the current TLV cards and their effects and how they play out change to match the mobile version?
So right now, the TLV cards has actually been prepared to be mobile ready. So all that is already considered. I won't rule out that it might be a bit kind of like maybe small adjustments, but that's not what I'm being told to what I recall. But everything with the TLV right now are playable at the desktop, and I have been ready now for the mobile version also. Also the design.
Let me just read this last question to see whether this is worthy. I'm thinking about it. Okay, so I think this is HSY. Recently, I'm playing the MMORPG a lot and thinking about why I treat the weapon I made in game so much. What is the reason that makes me feel it? And this feeling to our founders token only. I'm not sure about the question there. Sorry.
We're getting updates to saying that's not a question. I just wanted to chat. There we go.
Okay, gotcha. But
actually, question mark at the end. And then,
yeah, but again, it highlights a little bit. I know. Maybe I'm going a little bit back to the mobile, right? But one of the things that, looking at everything that we do, we want to, of course, make sure that we open up to a much bigger community, right? Again, this current game that we have, the mid-core, hardcore, is still a very narrow bunch of people, even though we think it could be big. A lot of people is playing Splinterlands and all these kind of things, but at the end, it's all about that feeling that you get. And I think just to highlight what the comment was about that one, I've now played so many play tests on the new mobile game. And every single time, it doesn't matter if I'm ahead of the game, I don't feel safe until I've actually won, or I'm actually behind the whole game until the very end, I feel like I have a chance. That is very rare for me to find in any kind of game. And that actually has also kind of like maybe surprised us a little bit how good this mobile gameplay version of it actually and really follows maybe even more the lore story of Doctor Who and the narrative and all that. And I keep saying it, I'm so proud seeing that this idea has been fostered within the team, right? It's not something kind of like, this is now like the new gameplay, how we interact, how we integrate, how the community, the NFTs, the frames, all these kind of things has been taken into consideration making this concept. I know we're going to touch much upon it in the mobile version. I just want to say, I can't wait to show you guys what we produced, because this is amazing. I really think so. I think you're muted, Alex.
He's gone again.
Sorry, I have to turn it on and off because my dog kicks off. But yeah, no, I have this thing where, because I've invested so much time in the PC version, I kind of came into the mobile with a bit of, I've spent 15 months getting good at this and practicing this and playing this, and you're going to change that. And I went into it, and even though I lost the game, as you say, it was actually the last move I lost the game on. I still really, really enjoy playing it. I still really enjoy playing it. So it is actually been really, really well thought out, and the team have put a lot of time and a lot of effort into it, and they've done an absolutely fantastic job.
Yeah. I just wanted to touch upon Vitas's questions about perhaps a founder's token allowing for more personalization, so it doesn't feel like too stuck. Completely agree. These are some of the things that we will take into the discussion and already have taken into how do we see founder's token maybe more as a personal, because it's part of your identity. It's kind of like who you are also in your community, how you grow, how you evolve, and so on. And it's going to become basically your personality in that sense, and how can we make it much more personal. So I'm fully following on that one, Vitas. So yeah.
Okay. All right. I think we'll wrap it up there, and that's a lot of information to take away for everyone. What we'll try and do is, as Morten said, we'll try and make this a more regular thing. We'll try, if we get a bunch of questions, we'll pull Morten in, and we'll do this more in the future. And it's something that we should have done this a lot sooner. And again, apologies from my side, and that we didn't. But I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we did this today. There's loads to take away. Loads. I'm gonna have to go and put all the chapters in this, and so people can find what they need to find, which will be fun tomorrow. I absolutely hate listening to my voice back, but we'll do that.
I think the last one, Alex, just so you see, I think there's a last comment maybe. Just so we have it, kind of like a tutorial.
That Dr. Hart style, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I just, this will be my final comment, right? Because I'm still looking at the airdrop being done. So it's just right now, I think 5.4% of everybody has got a free pack. But what I wanted to say is that there will be, with the mobile version, when we're going to come out and kind of like announce that, there will be tutorial mode, all these things in. It will be, of course, easier for people to play. And quite quickly, you will be able to play the new version. So that's going to be my final comment.
Is that a promise? Joking.
That was my final comment, Alex. My final comment. I'm not saying anything.
Thanks for watching. Do the usual, like, comment, subscribe, share, and make sure that if you're not, you join us on our Discord server. That's where most of the information comes out first, and you'll be able to be involved in the game if you want to play the game. There's great members there to teach you along the way and hold your hand if you need hand holding. So thanks everyone. Thanks Tom. Thanks Morten, and
always
take care.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Cheers all.
See you in Discord.